Well, for more, we're joined here in the studio by Rémi Bourgeot, who is an economist and researcher at IRIS. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Lots was discussed during the course of last night. 90% of Russian oil imports are going to be cut by the EU. Just tell us, what's your sense as to what the impact of all of these sanctions is going to be on Russia?
Well, it's not very clear, this impact on Russia, because these measures are pushing oil prices higher. So Russia is somehow benefiting from these higher oil prices, but also, obviously it cuts its exports, and Russia is struggling to find alternative export customers like China and India, and it's now in the category of pariah countries with Iran. I mean, it's less pariah in a sense than Iran, so it's somehow replacing it on this market with discounted prices. So the Russian economy is very much affected by the war, the sanctions mostly, but not as badly as could have been expected, because it's really autonomous in terms of food production in particular. Of course, energy, but not only that. Of course, there are really two sides to the impact of these sanctions, cutting Russia's exports, but also pushing energy prices even higher, which is somehow beneficial to Russia, since it still has some other markets to export to, but with great difficulty, of course.
Sure, and on the subject of oil, I mean, there's going to be some impact on Europe as well, isn't there? Because let's face it, there hasn't been time to make adequate contingency plans.
Yeah, that's really one of the main flaws in those announcements, and where are we going to export oil from? It's very little discussed. I mean, we should really focus on a longer-term strategy, I think, to diversify. It should have been done already 15 years ago. There were plans for natural gas as well as for oil, and we did just the opposite. We increased dependency on Russian oil and gas. So now we decide almost overnight to replace 90%. We're not sure where it's going to come from, and European countries are also fighting for the same alternative sources. Somehow that's not discussed enough. Obviously, in the short term, it's going to push energy prices even higher. We'll have to import Brent crude oil at higher prices than the type of oil Urals oil we import from Russia. So we will have to face this economic cost over the next few months, and that could also increase the risk of a recession. Also, this could end up having also a political impact. So that's really, there's an issue of, I think, of real consistency in the longer term, to be able to have a long-term approach and to stick to it. I mean, what if in a few months we find ourselves in a recession, and the same policymakers decide that maybe they should change course? They cannot really face the political cost of this situation. So I mean, there's a very clear direction at the moment, a clear message addressed to Russia, but I'm not sure really it's that robust in the longer term, or even for the next few months.
I mean, the deal that was struck overnight would have been struck much more easily were it not for internal disagreements, shall we say. How were we able to, how were the rest of the European Union able to get countries like Hungary on board? How were they persuaded to agree to back this?
Well, Hungary was the main dissenter, but there were also other countries which are less favorable to Russia, like Slovakia and the Czech Republic to some extent also. So there's been recognition among European leaders that those countries are landlocked, and that in this respect they are facing a very difficult situation. They have no alternative sources to import oil. They don't, and they don't have the possibility overnight to create new infrastructure, oil pipelines from other European countries. So there was really a willingness on the part of European leaders to find some common ground. So of course there's a financial side to it, financial support, and other debates also come into this negotiation. But they will be able, all these three countries, to keep importing Russian oil via the the old network of oil pipelines from Russia that dates back to the Soviet era. So they will be able to use it until the end of the year and even after that. But in the meantime, all other countries will stop their oil imports, and especially in the very short term, by oil imports by sea, by tankers.
The Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, has been, well, he hasn't hidden his feelings about the action of the international community. In some cases, he's welcomed it and he's been delighted. But when it comes to Europe, I mean, I think his frustration was apparent when he said it was an unacceptable delay reaching that decision to stop 90% of Russian oil imports. I mean, the EU is really being tested like never before, isn't it?
Well, I think he also reads between the lines, and then for the longer term, he sees there's not the European Union is not as much united as it might seem to other observers. There's a lot of discussion and delays in weapon deliveries. Germany is very reluctant in the end. So there's really an attempt to show unity, especially when adopting these rounds of sanctions. But really questions being raised, and the approach is quite different in Central Europe and in Western Europe between Germany and its eastern neighbors. And Germany is very much criticized for not showing or really offering enough support to Ukraine. So there's a bit of a gap between the media overall approach to this war and underlying political feelings about how to tackle this crisis in the longer term.
Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Rémi Bourgeot, economist and researcher at IRIS, thank you very much indeed.